Hey everyone, welcome back to the Huddle. My name's Nicole here with
The ecstatic Broncos fan, Ian St. Clair.
new week, new hat. I love it.
I have to go with the snot rocket or the old logo since the Broncos are wearing their color rush uniforms and the old logo will be on their helmet this Sunday against the Eagles.
All right, you're supporting. Do you have a game that you're going to this season on the agenda, or we still staying at home and supporting?
We're staying at home. I went out a couple of weeks ago to the betting lounges that Betfred and BetMGM have now at Mile High, thanks to the partnerships that they have with the Broncos. And it was the first, I joked, it's the first time that I've ever gone to a Broncos game and left before it started.
But the betting lounges, you said they were cool.
They're very cool. They add a whole new experience for tailgating, for fans. I think it's going to be something that teams across the country start doing, where especially like the Betfred Lounge, or I guess it's the South Lawn Tent, where it's outside the stadium. I think
Yep.
that's going to be something that other teams start doing, especially if they have sports betting in their state.
We're seeing this become a new trend. I believe they're doing it in Arizona as well. I believe that all of the bigger sporting venues have the option to add these betting lounges, and I believe in some of the new markets that don't even have legalized sports betting, they're already starting to write these betting lounges into their regulations. So it's going to be interesting. I agree with you. I think this is going to be the new trend. Um, my team is coming off of an atrocious win, but we won't go too much into that in the intro because we'll just cover it all in worst of the week. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Gonna get a little play on words here because this one for both of us was an easy call. It was an easy call that the worst of the week is a mixture of bad calls all in one game. And I can say this as a Steelers fan, but the refereeing, the officiating in the Monday Night Football Bears and Steelers game was absolutely atrocious.
The only thing that it was lacking was the Manning cast. To have Peyton and Eli talking about the officiating, I wonder if we would have gotten another Eli double bird from that game. Like he just couldn't deal with the officiating. He's like, really? We're gonna go here? Come
And they
on.
were on originally, I believe they were supposed to be on the Manning cast this week and then decided to take a break. I would have lived for Peyton's reactions to some of these things. And it probably would have been one of the highest rating Manning casts that they've ever done, but we didn't get it. We just had to watch the bad officiating without any real funny commentary.
And we don't
I'll
have to
go.
worry, and we don't, the players don't have to worry about the Manning curse because Josh Allen is the latest to go on the Manning cast and then come out the next Sunday and wonder what the heck happened because,
Well, when you lose to the Jags.
yeah, the Bills lost to the Jaguars 9 to
a,
6.
a statement not a person would think to say this football season. So maybe the Mannings were just like, you know what, let's take a step back, give these quarterbacks a fair shake this week.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of the Mannings, they're now into sports betting with their
Yes.
historic one of a kind partnership with the Caesar Sportsbook. So that and we won't get into that, but I think I wrote about it at playcolorado.com. I think the cool thing about it is the focus on responsible gambling. There
Yep,
is a
that's what I was gonna
huge
say.
there is a huge emphasis that the Mannings are going to put on responsible gambling. And I think that is great to see, not just from the Mannings, but also from Caesars.
I agree. I mean, I think the industry's new and they're figuring out how to do this, but we've seen, putting 800 numbers for different responsible gambling, programs in microscopic, font on the bottom of one piece of marketing material may not be the best way to go about getting that responsible gambling message out. So I am really excited that the focus is on responsible gambling and they're excited that the focus is on responsible gambling. So kudos to Caesars. I'm actually very excited for this partnership.
Yes. And I think fans and bettors across the country will as well, because it's the first family of football.
Yes, but enough of the Mannings. Let's get into these terrible calls, okay? I'm gonna start with one that went the Bears' way. I think it was the only call that went the Bears' way in the game. And this is only because time and time again, we have said on this show that the NFL cannot define what a catch is. Like the simplest thing they cannot define. And so Fields connects to Goodwin, who I believe it was like over 40-yard completion. He gets the ball in his fingertips and he's, trying to bring it into his chest. It's kind of bobbling around. He's trying to secure it when he goes out of bounds. They do call it a catch. Tomlin challenges it.
Run with some pace. Fields wants to load up, shot down the middle. It is caught, hung up for Goodwin, and then he can't hang on. Yes, they will say it's a catch. Lost possession at the end, but they're going to call it a grab for 50. This is a nice route by Goodwin, and you just see the speed, and you see Edmonds gets caught short. That is the kind of play that they needed. That's the kind of big shot that they needed.
I don't know if he caught that ball. Did he have control?
Is that control?
It's moving around.
That's on the outside of his...
The announcers are all like, oh, we've seen way less than this be reversed. We think it's going to be reversed. He didn't have clear possession. And then, of course, it comes out and, they rule it a catch and they stand by their call. So we have no idea when it's going to get reversed and when it's going to stand in this league.
Especially when it comes to a catch, because
correct,
as you said, we've talked about it on this show. So this is not my shocked face. I am not shocked that the league cannot define the simplest thing to define in its league, which is a catch. I mean, the only thing that could be less obvious to define is a pass. And I think there are still Raiders fans who are upset about this, given the tuck rule. Yeah. But I mean, come on, you can't define what a catch is, and it changes like from each. The thing that would be interesting about that call is I wonder if it happens 10 times in that game with that same crew, how many times it changes.
Exactly. Probably a coin flip at that point. But that was pretty much the only call that went for the Bears, because in that game they had 12 accepted penalties for 115 yards. And we'll get to the crazy one that everyone's been talking about last. But first you get a roughing the passer call on Big Ben, which is fine. Like, okay, some people didn't think it was, some people did. But then Justin Fields gets not like probably worse than what Big Ben got. Absolutely no call. Now I understand Ben's a senior citizen and maybe they're trying to, protect him out there. But again, consistency. If you're going to call it for one quarterback, you have to call it for the other. Then James Daniel gets called on a low block when he actually on replay didn't even touch anyone. So that was just sorry Bears. But then we get the creme de la creme, the one that everyone's talking about, and it is still talking about. We get the taunting call on Cassius Marsh. And this one is so controversial because he sacks Ben Roethlisberger on a third down. It's going to be 4th and 8. This is in the fourth quarter. So it's a very pivotal moment in the game. And he kind of puffs up his chest and he's looking at the Steelers sideline. And, he walks a few steps. He's still about 30 yards away from the Steelers sideline. And he gets called for taunting based off what the ref thought he was saying to the bench, because the ref was to his back and couldn't actually hear what he was saying.
Wow is right. I don't know, because the punter was running out, whether the official thought, but he wasn't even looking at the punter. He was looking at the sideline. He wasn't looking at the punter. He wasn't talking to the punter. I mean, I understand the respect of the game. Like, he's looking at the bench.
You just can't.
And he's not talking to the punter there.
No, he's definitely not. Nope.
Oh my goodness.
And that's where we are now. Officials are throwing flags for things that they didn't see for things that they didn't hear, but for what they thought. What they perceived to be going on is now a flag
quarter
in the National Football League.
on a pivotal down. So we also, like, there's video of the hip check where people think that the ref, like, threw his hip out to hit Cassius. And, I don't know. To me, and based off the ref's comments, he was going for the flag before that whole interaction happened. And again, his comments were, oh, I was throwing the flag based off what I thought he was saying to the sideline. So I think regardless of the contact, he was getting flagged. But the NFL has come out, they've doubled down, tripled down on this. They're saying the refs are doing exactly what we want them to be doing with this new rule.
And it's so weird. Like, why is this the thing that they want to remove from the game? Not the head-to-head collisions, not the concussions, not the dangerous hits, not the holding. I've joked that my grandfather, when he was watching the National Football League in the 1960s, would tell my mom, you can call a holding on every play. 60 years later, that is still the case. So I guess in that sense, at least the NFL is consistent.
Yeah.
But taunting, that's what you want to get rid of? I mean, if it's egregious, absolutely. But you're flagging things now on key situations in games where it would have been 4th and 18. And now instead of a 4th and 18, it's 1st and 10 after a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
Because of a perception by the referee.
And we've talked about needing to maintain the respect in the game, but that's why there's unsportsmanlike conduct. Like, we already had unsportsmanlike conduct calls. Like, before this taunting rule came in, you could still get called for that. And yeah, if he would have been 5 inches from the Steelers sideline, okay, call it. But 20 yards, this is a little aggressive of a call. And yeah, people on Twitter are, they're upset. And, I get it. It was a bad night for officiating because it wasn't just one bad call. It was 5, 6 questionable calls. And like you've said before, it's just the lack of consistency. What is roughing the passer? What is a catch? Like, what is taunting? There is just no consistency in the league.
And that's what gives life to conspiracy theories. This is a football show, but the biggest issue that people and fans have with Major League Baseball is the lack of consistency with umpiring. Now it's making its way into the NFL. And it seems like after these veteran officials like Gene Steratore and Ed Hockley and some of these other veterans who were around for a long time have retired, now we're getting younger officials coming in who really don't know the game, who don't know how to officiate, but they're also getting mixed messages from their bosses at the NFL on things that do not matter, that do not influence the game, but they're making it influence the game. And that's what's so maddening about this. If there's a little bit of consistency, as you said, if they can define what a catch is on a consistent basis, or holding, or roughing the passer, or pass interference, then that helps people get an idea of what to expect. And it's been a problem all year. On the Sunday night game, Aaron Donald gets flagged for a roughing the passer penalty on Ryan Tannehill. That is absolutely egregious. Aaron Donald is a giant man, and he shoves Ryan Tannehill, and because he's a beast and Ryan Tannehill is like a stick, it's gonna look like he was thrown 500 yards. But that's not roughing the passer.
Yeah, I've always had an issue with, I'm sorry, but if you're a 250-pound man going full speed and trying to, sack the quarterback, and he happens to get the ball off 2 seconds before you make contact, like, if it is biologically, physiologically impossible to stop that momentum. Like at some point, like we have to be realistic here. Like these roughing the passer calls, like it has to be realistic. Like you're saying, it's just like just his size alone, like anything is going to look like roughing the passer. And I mean, I get it. I don't want people hurt out there. Like nobody wants to see an injury or that can be prevented,
Right.
but it's got to be consistent. And I think that's where people get frustrated. But
I
I
think,
think
I mean,
we can all agree on that.
even now, they have the simplest way to take care of first downs, but we're still using the chain gang from the 1940s when they could be
Clearly
using
have the Hawkeye in tennis that we could
what that could, yeah,
employ.
exactly. And they could be using that on for touchdowns. Like you could put a buzzer in the ball, and as soon as it crosses the goal line, it goes off, or there's something that happens, or there's a buzzer like in tennis if it goes out. I mean, why?
Here's the thing. If the Hawkeye can get 125-mile-per-hour serve and tell you whether it's in or out by a single fiber on the tennis ball, there is a way that we can know whether or not the football crosses the plane for a touchdown or whether or not it crosses a first down marker. Like there have to be ways that we can modernize this game to at least bring like okay, I get it. Like you're not going to be able to, the Hawkeye's not going to help you for a roughing the passer call. But if you can, I mean, at least start to get consistent with, like you said, things such as the chain gang. I mean, it helps. Let's move the game in the right direction.
The other thing that they could do is have a Hawkeye person who's watching the All 22 film, who basically is like an official overseeing up at the top everything that's going on the field. That's basically like another official or supervisor, adding to the ability to keep the game and the consistency in place.
My favorite part of the game is like when all the officials come together to huddle, and it's like there's
Oh my
officials
God.
that weren't even near where the call was, and it's like, what are you adding? What are we huddling about here?
And why are they huddling when they have those headpieces where they can communicate with each other? Does
Yeah,
that not work? I mean, are those just like props?
yeah. Find out, conspiracy theorists, do those headsets even work for the NFL officiating crew? But okay, there is this. Okay, so worst of the week we can agree on, but take it to Twitter. We do not. I do not agree with the public, but I will say you've said the inconsistency fuels the flames for, you know, it fuels the flames for some of these conspiracy theories.
And I don't agree with Twitter either. Like I'm not into all of that, but I think it's that lack of consistency that gives life to these conspiracy theories of things are rigged or referees are placing bets on certain games.
And this is all over Twitter. I mean, when you go on Twitter after the Monday Night Football game, that's every other comment is the NFL's rigged, the NFL's rigged, the NFL's rigged. Here's our stance. I think we both kind of agree on this. We're not saying that there will never be a bad ref or there never has been a bad, ref in the league. Like we get that can happen. To say that the NFL is rigged as a whole is overboard here. First of all, let's just think about this one for a second. People that are saying that it's rigged for the sports books. The sports books needed the Bears to cover. That's what they needed. The refs, all of the calls went against the Bears. Like, so the sports books needed the Bears to cover and all of the calls go against the Bears. That doesn't make sense, right? Like now if all of the calls went against the Steelers, okay, you might have had a little bit stronger of an argument. It didn't. So I think to think that, the sports books just call up Roger Goodell and then Goodell just, calls up the officiating crew on headsets that may or may not work and tells them, oh, these sports books needed to go one way. It's unrealistic. And again, it doesn't even make sense in this scenario. So I'm sorry for those of you that say we're saying the NFL's rigged. We do not agree with you. It doesn't even make sense this week.
and I get it that the NFL is really stupid, but the sports books aren't. They have agreements with the NFL. All these agreements just happened. Sports betting is just now getting legal in most of these states. The only states that it's been in for longer than a year or 2 or 3 is New Jersey and Nevada. Are they really going to want to go out and start rigging games and having this hang over their industry this soon? I mean, I love conspiracy theories. I mean, we won't get into it on especially the one.
Yes, I was deep in that Discovery Channel conspiracy theory. Don't worry, I love a good conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, where is Sasquatch? But this is one that there's no basis to it. And I mean, and we can go back, and especially now, anytime people bring up sports betting, and now that you see the odds, especially like on MLB Network, for example, they always bring up Pete Rose and the Black Sox scandal, the 1918 Shoeless Joe Jackson scandal. That's always going to be something that comes back up, but this is not something that has any life or is in any way true.
Correct. And if you truly, in your heart of hearts, feel that the NFL is rigged, then you should not be betting. You know what I'm saying? You can't then you shouldn't be betting. It is not we do not agree with this, but if that is your stance and that is truly how you feel, then you should not be wagering. That's
absolutely. If that's the justification for a bet being lost, don't bet, because that leads to other potential problems, and that it's not responsible, and it's not fun. It's gambling, and sports betting is supposed to be fun. And
and it's tough because obviously this is our industry. We're very passionate about it, and it has been stigmatized, throughout history. And so when people just make these Twitter comments over and over, rigged, NFL's rigged, and they're flooding Twitter, and this is all people see. It's hard for that stigma to go away. But it's like, if you really dug into it for that game, that comment doesn't even make sense. So glad we are in agreement. Twitter, we do not agree with you on this one.
Exactly. And I think you touched on it. I think the thing with conspiracy theories is they're easy, but they're also lazy. And if you actually put in the work to actually look forward and think about it cognitively and realistically, they don't make sense.
Yes. So it's going to be a no from us. Okay. It is time to put that to rest. It was a bad Monday. We get it, but we're actually filming a day early. It's Wednesday now. Fresh start, everyone. Let's get in the boat. Let's take it to Fantasy Island. Row our boat. We've got a free man, OBJ. He's a free man. He's officially
out of Cleveland.
He's out of Cleveland.
I think most people want to be out of Cleveland. I don't want to insult Cleveland, but
I was visiting a friend in Cleveland. This is my funny Cleveland story. I'm from Las Vegas, and she took me to a coffee shop to get a round of, iced coffees for our friends. I think I ordered 3 iced coffees and 4 sausage, egg, and cheese bagel sandwiches. And the girl at the window told me it would be $9.79.
Ooh, how about that?
And I was like, wait a second. I was like, can you repeat my order? She's like, yeah, we have 3 iced coffees and 3 bagel and cheese sandwiches. And to be honest, if that's the cost of living in Cleveland, maybe I do want to be there, because I can barely get 2 coffees for $9.79 in Las Vegas. So maybe Cleveland, not a bad place after all. Not a bad place to live.
That sounds like my kind of math.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Not going to argue it. I'm going to take it. But never in my life have I heard that you can get 3 breakfast for $9.79. So after that, Cleveland's always had a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. It would in my heart too.
I definitely got us off track, but yes, OBJ, he's a free man. I don't know if he's already been, if you can pick him up on your, fantasy roster. It's for me, it's all going to depend on where he lands, whether or not this is a good pickup. He said that he wants to go to the Packers. You and I have discussed this. If he goes there, get him on your roster, but he's not going to be an impact player for every single team in the league.
Exactly. And I think the thing that's interesting about this is if you look at the teams that he's rumored to be going to, and by the time people watch this, he may have already made his decision. But I think the move that makes the most sense is the Packers, because you pair him with Devontae Adams, that is a very good receiving crew now, and he's being thrown to by Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers will be the best quarterback that OBJ has played with. That will make that team that much more difficult to defend on top of Aaron Jones. So
he also said Saints, but Saints have
Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, so not as exciting there. And then the Chiefs, which has just been such a hit or miss team this season.
I don't see him moving the needle for the Chiefs. It may take a little bit of pressure off of Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, but it's not going to move the needle because the biggest issue for the Chiefs isn't offense. It's their horrible defense. Can OBJ replace Daniel Sorensen?
Right. So I agree with you. Like, I think, again, we are recording on Wednesday this week because it is a holiday week. Our show is still going to come out on Friday, but he might have already made his decision. So, hopefully our advice isn't a moot point by the time this comes out on Friday. But yeah.
I will add one in terms of the betting odds. Maxim Bet, which is live in Colorado, has a betting market for this. And they actually have the Ravens as a co-favorite with the Packers, which I think is fascinating because I haven't heard the Ravens mentioned at all by anybody. So I don't know where they're getting that from, but that would be an interesting pickup too, because to me, Lamar Jackson is the most valuable player in the NFL this season. What he is doing is insane. You take Lamar Jackson off of the Ravens, they're a 1 or 2 win football team. But with Lamar Jackson, they're 6-2 and in contention for the AFC. So you add OBJ to that mix, he has a legitimate weapon now, which he doesn't have at all right now. So that would be fascinating. I just don't. He hasn't even been.
Haven't heard. OBJ hasn't said that that's one of his top teams, so we'll see. Like you said, be very interesting. But with this one, it's all dependent on the team because I think OBJ at some teams can be a real dud and not really move the needle at all for your fantasy team, and then on some teams could, improve your roster tenfold. So we'll see. By the time this comes out, we might know where he lands. Are you ready to get back to the mainland?
I am. Let's get back in and get in the boat.
Row the boat. All right. So we have promo party. I think we both have new user offers this week. Mine is DraftKings. This is one that we would call an absolute no-brainer, and it runs through November 21st. So you still have a few weeks to get in on this one. So new users sign up. Again, like we say every week, we have DraftKings banners on our sites, Play Colorado, Play Indiana, thelines.com, playusa.com. You got to make your first deposit of at least $5 and then place your first wager. So this one has to be your first wager of $1 or more on the money line. And the reason I like this is because of the variety. The money line of any NBA, NFL, college football, or college basketball game before the end of the promotion on November 21st. And then your first place wager on any of those promotion markets will be your qualifying wager for the promo. And if either team scores a point in the game, you get $100 in free bets paid out in 4 $25 free bets. But you do have to use those free bets within 7 days of being credited. So you got to be fast on this one.
And for me, FanDuel is having another no-brainer promotion of its own. It's another real cash money potential for the Rams and the 49ers on Monday Night Football. FanDuel is offering a new user promo of 30-1 odds, where if you place a $5 money line wager on either team to win, if they win, you win $150 in real cash money.
I mean, it is just so hard to compete with the cash aspect of it, because like I said, with DraftKings, it is a no-brainer, but we have, you have to use the free bets within 7 days, and they're broken down into $25 free bets. So as always, cash is king. But if you're already a FanDuel user and you want to sign up for DraftKings, I think this is still a great promotion for you.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I mentioned in my story at playcolorado.com about this FanDuel new user promo is it gives bettors the flexibility to make a choice on what they do. They can keep the money if they win in their account and test out the app, or they can just cash out. And yep. I think it's that freedom to make that decision, that flexibility, that makes it nice. Because while I love free bets, it's not as good as real cash money.
You're right. You have to wager them. And then with a free bet, you don't actually get your stake back. When you place a wager, you just normally get your winnings. So obviously there are limitations, and there are no limitations on cash. So yeah, either one's a good option. Like I said, Ian and I agree. If you have the option to get cash, get cash. But with DraftKings, I mean, you're wagering $1, and it's pretty much a guaranteed win for you. So that's a good one as well. Are you ready to go to prop, lock, and drop it?
I am, because I think I'm happy about the one that I'm going to pick, even though we don't really know what they are yet.
Yeah, so just to be fair, we are filming early, so there are no prop lines out for the upcoming slate of NFL games. So we are just gonna, we're gonna go over our prop picks from last week, and then just, be a little funny, talk about maybe a prop we would bet if we were filming this tomorrow, or just a funny prop we'd like to see. I think I'm still currently 3-4 because I had Devontae Parker over on his receiving yards. He was on the injured reserve for that game against the Texans, so that bet gets refunded to me. So that one is a wash for me, and you won your bet last week.
I did. I went with what I thought was the not as good of value in terms of the minus, I believe it was minus 130, but I thought there was no doubt it was going to hit, and it did. And that was Dalvin Cook and Lamar Jackson to combine for 154.5 rushing yards. And that was, I mean, they combined for over 200. So
money.
That was easy money. And now I believe I am 4-6 on the year, since I've had a couple of multi-game props.
You have had a couple multi-game props, even though we always warn against the props.
Yeah, the same game parlays.
Yeah, I'm just, hey, we said sometimes if we can't have props, we're going to talk about props we'd like to see on the board that sportsbooks don't offer. And, this year, how many taunting calls over or under are going to get called in a game? Why not put that on the board?
Why not do a combined for the week?
Yeah. Over under 60.
Yeah, there you go. And then
I would love to know what the line would be set at.
For me, I'm going with anything that has a Jonathan Taylor rushing total, I'm going over.
So if we were doing this tomorrow, you would just, whatever it is, you're taking the over.
Yeah. I mean, now that Derrick Henry is out, I think he's so fun to watch. The way that he runs the ball, and the way that the Colts, the Colts offensive line, now that they have Quentin Nelson back, their stud left guard, that offensive line, the way that they can open up lanes for him, and the way that he runs, and how versatile he is being a receiver on top of all of that, I think that's what makes him such a dangerous weapon for Frank Reich and the Colts and that offense. He is such a dangerous running back. So yes, whatever it is, over.
All right. that's what technically it's just like a fun week for us. If you are betting this week, as always, good luck, bet responsibly. If you're just enjoying the games, have fun watching with your friends, watch them by yourself. However, we will see you next Friday.